The wrong voice will not always sound evil. Sometimes it sounds like your friend. Sometimes it sounds like the group chat that laughs every time you try to become serious. Sometimes it sounds like the version of you that keeps whispering, "Start tomorrow." And that is why most men do not realize they are being led until they are already lost. You are not just struggling because you lack discipline. You are struggling because too many voices in your life are giving permission to the weakest parts of you. They give your laziness a name. They call it rest. They give your fear a name. They call it being realistic. They give your excuses a name. They call it knowing your limits. And after a while, you stop hearing danger. You start hearing comfort. That is how a man loses years. Not in one dramatic collapse. He loses years slowly. One conversation, one compromise, one voice, one person telling him it is fine to stay exactly where he is. And one day he looks around at his body, his money, his discipline, his relationships, his mind, and he asks the question every man is terrified to ask. How did I become this? The answer is painful. You kept listening to people who were never qualified to lead you. You let people with no discipline define balance. You let people with no standards call you extreme. You let people with no vision tell you to slow down. You let people who made peace with their own decline convince you that your hunger was the problem. But your hunger was never the problem, your environment was. The voices you kept protecting were. And until you get honest about that, you will keep trying to rebuild your life while still obeying the same voices that helped tear it down. Look at your life right now. Not the version you explain to people, the real version. Look at who has access to your mind. Who do you call when you are weak? Who makes you feel stupid for wanting more? Who makes your old habits feel normal? Who talks you out of hard decisions because your change makes them uncomfortable? Because every man has voices around him, but not every voice deserves access. Some voices sharpen you, some voices soften you, some voices wake up the man inside you, other voices sedate him. They do not need to hate you to harm you, they just need to keep you comfortable. They just need to keep you laughing while your standards die. They just need to make distraction feel like personality. They just need to convince you that the life you are living is normal. But normal is dangerous when normal is slowly destroying you. Normal is dangerous when everyone around you is broke, distracted, bitter, undisciplined, and still confident enough to give advice. Normal is dangerous when the loudest voices in your life have no fruit. That is the part most men avoid: fruit, results, evidence. You keep taking life advice from people who have mastered sounding wise but have produced nothing worth following. And then you wonder why your life does not change. It cannot change while the wrong voices still have authority. A man becomes what he repeatedly accepts. If you accept excuses long enough, you become an excuse. If you accept weak standards long enough, you become weak and call it peace. If you accept distraction long enough, focus starts to feel painful. If you accept fake loyalty long enough, you start confusing attachment with brotherhood. And some of you are not loyal. You are afraid to outgrow people. There is a difference. You know the voice that keeps pulling you backward. You already know. You know the friend you cannot be serious around. You know the content you watch at night that feeds the part of you you are supposed to be killing. You know the person who only supports the version of you that stays convenient. You know the room where your standards go to die. But knowing is not enough. Most men do not fail because they never saw the warning sign. They fail because they kept walking past it. They fail because the danger was familiar. They fail because the wrong voice felt comfortable. They fail because leaving meant grief. And grief is the price of growth nobody wants to talk about. When you start changing, you lose more than habits. You lose conversations. You lose routines. You lose rooms. You lose versions of yourself people still expect you to perform. You lose the easy approval that came from staying predictable. And that is why most men go back. Not because the old life was better, Because the old life was socially easier. It is easier to stay weak with people who understand your weakness than to become strong around people who feel threatened by it. It is easier to laugh at your own potential than to take it seriously. It is easier to call your dreams unrealistic than to admit you have been lazy. But easy has a cost, and the bill always comes. It comes in the mirror. When you do not recognize the man looking back, it comes in your bank account, when years of delay have become numbers you cannot ignore. It comes in your body, when comfort has left evidence. It comes in your relationship, when someone gets tired of waiting for you to become who you kept promising you would become. It comes in your mind, when you realize you have been busy, entertained, connected, and still empty. That is what wrong voices do. They do not just waste your time, they train your tolerance for decline. So here is what you do. Not someday, not when you feel ready, tonight. You do a voice audit. Take out your phone, open your notes, and write down every voice that has access to you. People, group chats, channels, podcasts, music, accounts, messages, private habits, the friend who makes discipline feel embarrassing, the voice in your head that sounds reasonable but always leads you back to delay. Write it down. Then ask one question beside each name. What kind of man does this voice produce in me? Not what do I feel? Feelings are not enough. Not do I like them? Liking someone does not mean they should lead you. Not have they been around a long time. History is not the same as authority. Ask what they produce. Do they produce discipline? Do they produce honesty? Do they produce responsibility? Do they make you more serious about your life? Or do they produce confusion, lust, laziness, bitterness, delay, self-pity, and comfort? Be honest, because this is where the rebuilding starts. Some voices need to be cut, some need to be muted, some need to be unfollowed, some need to lose the privilege of advising you, and some need to be replaced with silence. Do not underestimate silence. Silence can heal what noise kept opening. Silence can reveal what distraction kept hiding. Silence can make you face the man you have been avoiding. A season alone with standards is better than a crowded life full of people who keep lowering them. You do not need a bigger circle. You need a cleaner one. You do not need more opinions. You need more truth. You do not need people who clap for the version of you that keeps falling. You need people, or at least voices, that remind you of the man you said you were becoming. And understand this. When you stop giving access to the wrong voices, people will notice. They will say you changed. They will say you are distant. They will say you are acting different. They will say you think you are better. Let them misunderstand the cost of your survival. You are not changing because you hate them. You are changing because you finally respect the future version of yourself enough to protect him. You are changing because the old version of you was too available, too easy to influence, too afraid to disappoint people, too loyal to rooms that kept him small, too comfortable being understood by people who were not growing. But the man you are becoming cannot be built by the voices that kept the old you alive. The man you are becoming cannot be built by the voices that kept the old you alive. That sentence should bother you, because you know exactly who it applies to. You know what needs to be muted. You know what conversation needs to stop. You know what room you cannot keep entering. You know what advice you cannot keep pretending is harmless. And no, this does not mean you become cold. It means you become responsible. You can love people without letting them lead you. You can respect people without obeying them. You can forgive people without giving them access. That is maturity. That is self-respect. That is discipline at the level most men avoid, because lifting weights is easier than cutting access. Waking up early is easier than outgrowing a circle. But if you want a different life, you cannot keep giving authority to the same voices. You cannot keep blaming your environment while refusing to leave it. You cannot keep saying you want to change while letting every familiar voice pull you back into the same pattern. At some point, the question stops being, "Who influenced me?" and becomes, "Why did I keep listening?" That is the question that changes a man. Because once you accept responsibility for your ears, you take back authority over your direction. You stop being easy to lead. You stop being cheap to access. You stop letting noise decide your future. You start choosing what shapes you. And slowly, painfully, you become different. Not because everyone approved, because you finally stopped needing approval from people who were comfortable with your decline. One day, your life will reflect the voices you obeyed. That should either scare you or wake you up. Because every voice is taking you somewhere. Some are leading you back to the man you were meant to become. Others are leading you back to the version of yourself you said you were done being. Choose carefully. Guard your mind. Protect your standards. Audit the voices. And stop listening to people who keep you weak. If this hits something in you, do not just watch this and move on. Do the audit tonight. Write down the voices. Cut what is weakening you. Keep what is sharpening you, and comment, "I'm listening different now," if you are done letting the wrong voices shape your life.